New York City, 1986. The bitter end in Greenwich Village was thick with cigarette smoke and the ghosts of decades of music history. That night, Bob Dylan was meant to appear for a surprise acoustic set, a few songs, nothing more. But just moments before he stepped on stage, a folded note was slipped into his hand. 3 words, a name. He read it, frowned, and without a word turned away, guitar on his back, and disappeared into the cold Manhattan night. He never explained why, not to the club, not to the press, not even to the friend who had invited him. Those who knew Dylan understood. That name carried weight, memory, and a quiet kind of hurt that time had never erased. At 83, Dylan has started to open that private vault, not to settle scores, not for spectacle, but simply to speak the truths that have shaped his career. The people on his list weren't enemies. They were collaborators, friends, icons, even mirrors of himself at different stages of life. Eric Clapton, for instance, a guitarist whose talent Dylan had admired, had once sparked a quiet storm. On the surface, they were musical soulmates, trading stages and sharing a mutual respect. But behind the scenes, during Dylan's gospel-infused experiments of the late 70s, Clapton's casual remark to a producer suggested Dylan was losing his edge and hinted ever so subtly that the crown of musical genius might belong to him. Dylan didn't erupt, but the wound lingered. Sessions were quietly canceled and trust shifted. Then there was Joan Baez, the folk queen whose harmonies had once intertwined seamlessly with Dylan's, whose voice marched alongside his in rallies for civil rights and peace. Their connection was not only musical but spiritual and political. But when Dylan evolved, electrifying his sound and exploring personal, surreal lyrics, Baez felt betrayed. To her, he had abandoned the cause they had championed together. Dylan never publicly retaliated, yet the rift endured for decades, a silent testament to the cost of personal evolution in the public eye. Lou Reed, the punk poet, struck a different chord. Dylan admired innovation, but mockery cut deeper than critique. Reed's public dismissal of Dylan as a poet of pretense left a wound that years of silence could not smooth. Similarly, Frank Zappa's sharp sarcasm, aimed at Dylan's voice and lyrics, was a challenge Dylan could not accept lightly. For him, artistic integrity was inseparable from respect. Even those he admired, like Leonard Cohen and Michael Bloomfield, carried shades of betrayal. Cohen's quiet rise in Dylan's absence felt like an eclipse. Bloomfield, whose guitar had ignited Dylan's rock reinvention, later minimized Dylan's role in interviews, claiming the fire as his own. And Paul McCartney, once a friendly peer, ended up representing a kind of polished safety Dylan could never inhabit. Publicly polite, privately distant, McCartney's casual critique of Dylan's later work was, to Dylan, a sting deeper than words. These weren't petty grudges, they were fractures of identity, reflections of Dylan's own evolving self. Each name held a memory of trust, admiration, and expectation, and each rupture traced the delicate line between collaboration and betrayal. Dylan's silences, withdrawals, and refusals were not born of vanity. They were a shield, a way to preserve his dignity in a world that often demanded compromise. Now, in his 80s, Dylan speaks not to accuse but to illuminate. These stories of tension, disappointment, and human complexity reveal the cost of genius, the fragility of loyalty, and the weight of artistic truth. The names, the absences, the unspoken words, these are the shadows that have shaped him as much as the music itself. In telling them, Dylan doesn't seek revenge. He simply bears witness, quietly and relentlessly, to a life lived fully, fiercely, and without apology.